Okay, so now we're on section 3.9. We're doing question 5, which has 3 parts. And so we've got this angle, inverse cosine of the ratio 1/2. That means that we're going to go over 1 and up and have a radius of 2, and if we use the Pythagorean theorem with the length of this side 1, the length is going to be √3. So the coordinates of this point are 1 over 2 and √3 over 2, and that corresponds to the coordinates formed relative to the angle theta, where theta equals pi over 3. That means that the inverse cosine of 1/2 is the angle pi over 3. Keep in mind, whenever you take an inverse, any inverse trig function represents an angle. So let's do B. And that's going to be we've got to find the inverse cosine of -1 over √2. So we'll draw our unit, or draw our circle. It's not a unit circle. And now we're in the second quadrant, because the range of the inverse cosine function is the first and second quadrants. And we're going to go over 1 and have a radius of √2. So this is -1 here. This is √2. And if we use the Pythagorean theorem, we'll also get a value of 1 here. So the coordinates of this point are -1 over √2 and 1 over √2, negative. And so those are the points that correspond to the angle. Let's see, this is the reference angle is pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. Now let's go on and do part C. And we're looking at the inverse cosine of √3 over 2. And we'll draw our circle and X and Y, and so we've got a radius of 2. We're going to go over √3, which is almost 2. So √3, and go up, and we have a radius of 2. So this distance is √3. By the Pythagorean theorem, this distance is going to be 1. So the coordinates of this point are √3 over 2 and 1 over 2, and we know that those coordinates suggest an angle of pi over 6. And now we are done. Now we're doing question 21, and we've got to find the derivative of the inverse cosine of x squared. Well, on the previous page, you'll see that the derivative of the inverse cosine of u equals -1 over the square root of 1 minus u squared du dx, where the absolute value of u is less than 1. So now, according to this, dy dx equals -1 over the square root of 1 minus, and x squared squared, so that's going to be x to the fourth. And then du dx chain rule, we take the derivative of x squared, which is 2x. So this is times 2x. So that equals negative 2x, and by the way, dx is 1, chain rule, and root 1 minus x to the fourth. Now, let's stop right. Well, now we're doing question 23. And by the way, here's the identity for the derivative of the inverse sine function where the absolute value of u is less than 1. And so that's on the previous page. So dy dt equals, and according to this we have a 1 and the square root of, and 1 minus u squared, well in the u position is the square root of 2 times t. If we square that, we get 2t squared. Then we take, by the chain rule, we go inside and take the derivative of root 2t, and what we get out of that is root 2. So, and dt, which is 1, by the way. So this gives us root 2 over the square root of 1 minus 2t squared, and we're done.